Most people think the Nakasendo Trail is just a beautiful, peaceful hike through the ancient Japan, but the real history of this highway is far darker. This road wasn't built for tourists. It was built over 400 years ago by the legendary Shogun Tokugawa Ieyasu as a brutal tool to keep total control over the country. In this video, we're uncovering the dark reality of the Nakasendo. Powerful warlords forced into life or death travel schedules, extreme laws punishable by death, and the heavy burden placed on ordinary villages just to keep the Shogun's empire running. What you're about to hear will completely change how you see this road. Let's dive in. Okay, to understand this road, you have to know Tokugawa Ieyasu. He is arguably the most important person in Japanese history and the mastermind behind this trail. If you watch the hit show Shogun, he is the real-life inspiration for the main character, Lord Toranaga. And just like in the show, Ieyasu was a master political chess player. He unified Japan after 100 years of brutal civil war and became the Shogun, the absolute military ruler. He wanted his family to rule forever, and they almost did, ruling for nearly 264 years. This time of peace and total control is called the Edo-period. And Edo was the original name of the city we now call Tokyo. But the Shogun had a huge problem. Powerful regional lords called daimyo who might try to rebel. How do you stop armed warlords from fighting you? You make them travel constantly. The Shogun created a system called Sankin-kotai. Every daimyo was forced to live in Edo right under the Shogun's nose every other year. And when they went back home, they had to leave their wives and kids behind in Edo as political hostages. So, if a daimyo lord even thought about rebelling, his wife and kids would be executed, probably by seppuku, ritual suicide.
I'll see you in the next life.
So all the regional lords marched back and forth between their hometown and Edo. And they had to use the 5 main highways to do this. And the most legendary mountain route was the Nakasendo. So to stop warlords, the daimyo, from rebelling, the shogun micromanaged their entire lives using a strict law book called Buke Shohato. First, he ranked every daimyo using a number system called koku, which measured how much rice their land produced. 1 koku was the exact amount of rice it took to feed 1 grown man for a whole year. So your koku determined your entire status in the ranking system. If you had 10,000 to 30,000 koku, you were a minor lord. 30,000 to 100,000, you were medium tier lord. 100,000 to 300,000 koku, you were in the major leagues. In Edo-period Japan, society was locked into a rigid hierarchy, and everyone was trapped in this assigned class. If you spoke out, or dressed too fancy, or stepped even an inch out of line, you were risking your life. The shogun made absolutely sure that everyone stayed exactly where they belong. That is Buke Shohato. That is the law. For example, the shogun strictly regulated the size of the daimyo's lord's traveling entourage. If you brought too many samurai, it looked like an invading army. Bring too few, and you look too poor to the public. You have to look powerful to the public, but never too powerful to threaten the shogun. The shogun even ran fashion audits. Only elite lords could wear silk. If you dressed too fancy, you would get arrested for looking like you had enough money to start a coup. But the craziest rule was the travel schedule. Daimyo lords had to submit their exact route and arrival date months in advance, and being late was a matter of life and death. Now, if a flood washed out your bridge, you were fine because you had an excuse. But if you overslept, that was treason. Sounds crazy. If you committed any of these offenses, the shogun would strip away your land and force you to commit suicide ritual, seppuku. Ultimately, these mandatory road trips were so expensive, nearly bankrupted the daimyo lords. And that was the shogun's master plan all along. He wanted to almost bankrupt all daimyo so nobody would try to overthrow him. So being a daimyo was very, very stressful, but everyday commoners had it much, much harder. And without the hardworking commoners, this whole system would have collapsed. When you walk down the streets of Magome or Tsumago, don't just imagine yourself as a grand samurai. Look at it through the eyes of the cooks, innkeepers, and the baggage carriers. For them, a samurai parade was a logistical nightmare. Imagine 500 hungry, short-tempered samurai arriving in your quiet village tomorrow. First, the streets had to be completely spotless. No litter, no filth. There's a story about a Dutch doctor named Engelbert Kempfer who traveled here to Edo in the late 1600s, and he was astonished. While European cities like London and Paris were overflowing with filth thrown out the windows, Japanese commoners kept the highways cleaner than a modern kitchen. And if you've been to Japan, you know what I'm talking about. What will surprise you is this cleanliness. As soon as you arrive at a Japanese airport, go into the restroom and see for yourself. It's so clean, you can practically take a nap on the restroom floor. So I have a feeling that famous modern Japanese cleanliness started in the Edo period. Okay, now let me tell you about the inns that the daimyo lords stayed at. The crown jewel of the town was the honjin. This is the ultra-luxury inn reserved only for the top daimyo lords. The tatami mats had to be pristine, the gardens perfect, and the foods royal. This wasn't a business for profit, it was a terrifying duty. If a lord found a single speck of dust, or if the bath water was too cold, the local innkeeper could lose his life. So basically a 1-star review on Yelp back then meant execution. Right next to the honjin was the waki honjin. This is the secondary inn for the lower ranking officials. Actually, the owner of the waki honjin often had another side business called the toyaba. Think of it like an Amazon warehouse. It's a chaotic transport office. Okay, you see, the daimyo's horses didn't travel the whole highway from Kyoto to Tokyo, okay? Instead, they used kind of a relay system called tenma. So when a procession arrived from a prior post town, all the baggages had to be unloaded, logged at the toyaba, reloaded onto fresh horses, and then the men from that town had to haul it to the next town. That sounds like a lot of work, but that's how they did it, okay? And all the heavy lifting was done by tough laborers called kumosuke, who carried this heavy load up and down the steep mountains daily. Now, if the town ran out of men, there's a backup system called skego. This is a law that government put in place. the shogun forced ordinary farmers from surrounding villages to drop their tool, leave their crops, and do this hard labor of carrying baggages for little or no pay. Because they were taken away during harvest time, many families faced starvation. These towns were always under pressure to serve this crazy, ridiculous system the shogun put in place, and everyone suffered because of it. The honjin and wakihonjin were used by the higher ranking officials. Now the lower ranking officials were put in inns called hatago, a regular inn providing bed and 2 meals. But these inns had a dark history. They employed women called meshimori onna, and on paper they were servers, but they were actually forced to work as prostitutes. The government officially banned prostitution during Edo-period, but kind of looked the other way because the inns needed the extra money to survive. And if the inns went bankrupt, the lower class samurai workers would have had nowhere to sleep, and the shogun's travel system would have collapsed. Many women were sold into this life with zero choice. If you were completely broke, you stayed at Kitchen Yado Inn. They gave you no food, you just paid for the firewood to cook your own meals, and you slept shoulder to shoulder with strangers on the floor. Think of it as the 17th century equivalent of a sketchy youth hostel, minus the free Wi-Fi. Now, when you visit post towns along Nakasendo, the honjin and wakihonjin have big historic signs. But to find the hatago and the kitchen yado, I had to ask the local tourist information center. They will happily point them out, or you can probably find them on local maps if you look closely. And make sure you check them out and see in person the difference in lifestyle between the daimyo and the commoners. But whether you are a daimyo or commoner, everyone was trapped in this system. This role was an instrument of absolute control. People back then whispered the phrase okami no me, meaning the eyes of the government. It meant the shogun was always watching. Here's the most incredible part of this story. Despite the strict laws and the intense pressure, Edo-period Japan thrived. The economy boomed, the population grew, and beautiful culture like kabuki or ukiyo-e flourished because the hardworking people found a way to succeed anyway. You can still see the echoes of that era today. The trains arrive exactly on time. The streets are perfectly clean in Japan. The service is flawless, right? Some people say Japanese society became this disciplined because they feared the shogun's punishment. But personally, I think Japanese people have always had a special spirit inside them. Whether it's a harsh rule of a shogun, or wars, or earthquakes, tsunamis, no matter the hardship, the people of this country will always stand up and do their absolute best. And that's what I choose to believe. And that is the kind of strength I want to have in my own life. When you walk the Nakasendo, you're walking through the enduring spirit of Japan. I hope you enjoyed this history. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. Leave a comment below. Do you think Japan's discipline came from the shogun? Or is it just who they've always been? Thanks for watching, and watch out for bears, by the way. And I'll see you on the trail.